Hey, welcome to Lab, the podcast. It's good to be back. We get to be here for another conversation, the life and beauty of the gospel. And we get to do it regularly and have these conversations regularly around poetry. So we are here with V3's Conservatory Poet Wendy Kieffer. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Zach.
How's summer?
It's good, but it's short. Almost over, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Again, we've said it before, but Florida summer ends early because we start early.
Yes.
The summer season doesn't end. It never ends. But the actual break from school ends early because the kids all go back to school in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's so strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are fresh back from a whole different part of the world.
Yep.
Yeah. Give us just a few words to describe how you were feeling getting away and into a new landscape. What did that feel like?
I think it really deepened me. It was a deepening and a broadening of my interior world, of my outlook. I think it was refreshing. I went to the UK and I attended the School of Myth. So I was just simmering in ancient stories, and the beauty and the power of the stories mingled with the great company and the gorgeous landscape with its history and its rich literary depth. All of it was just so life-giving.
Yeah.
So life-giving. I came back just, lighter.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you for going too. I think if I would have known that there was a School of Myth, my whole school experience would have been way different. but nobody told me there was a School of Myth.
I think it's a relatively new / old thing. I think that we need more of them. So maybe Tampa could sustain that. Yeah.
There you go. We'll the conservatory someday will be our little contribution.
There you
go.
The School of Myth can have an annex.
Yeah. I just read an article that somebody was encouraging people to travel, and they were just saying, and they specifically said, Americans, you need to travel. And they were saying it's so vital for us to go to other places, meet other people, even if it's just a short drive away or outside your own zip code or wherever it is, just open yourself up to see and know people in a different way.
Yep.
And that kind of swings us into the knowing part of what I wanted to talk about. Always this little education piece of poetry just for poetry, because it does express the life and beauty of the gospel in such a particular way. And also the recovery project to say there's a way of knowing that's not just left brain, rational based, top to bottom, left to right, but there's a way of knowing through our senses and experience that can only come in the ways that it comes. And travel is one of those. You sit down at a table with people and break bread and listen to stories and hear perspectives. And it can only come like that. But you got to make space for it. You got to make time for it. And that's hard fought.
Yeah.
Did you find on your trip, was it in nature or was it with people? Did you have a moment where you can say, wow, I kind of knew something, not at a head level, but I really found myself coming into a knowing of something through a completely different way of participating?
I think the all of it combining the people, the company I was with. I have a friend that I've been traveling with now. I did the pilgrimage with her and some others. And then this was our second outing. And we realized we made a pattern. And if we do it next year, it'll be a tradition.
There you go.
So the company was obviously really good at the event itself, because I think it attracts a certain breed of human. And then there's lots of time at the tables and in between moments in the beauty of nature. But I think the most powerful element for me was the stories, was hearing these ancient myths told in such a rich and beautiful way that they then stir inside of you. And suddenly you realize that you have this massive reservoir to find and locate yourself in your own story and to understand where you are in your story, where you've come from, where you need to go. There is so much wisdom embedded in them, but it's not explicit.
Yeah.
It's not explicit. It's not a 10-step wisdom retreat meeting. It is, here's a story told to you in a wildly entertaining and deep, beautiful way. And then that sort of resonates and circles inside of you. And you don't realize how much wisdom it's actually delivering to you in a very tacit or implicit way. And suddenly you are broadened, expanded, and kind of having that sense of knowing your place in your own story without anyone telling you.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. There were a lot of therapists there. So I was one of the writers there, but I thought, the more conversations I had, I realized that these stories are being used in therapy.
Yeah.
They're extremely therapeutic and timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just this universal sort of consciousness or hunger that has been throughout human history. And you really tap into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're struggling or thinking through or wrestling through or just walking through whatever moment you're walking through, sometimes you don't know what you need. You don't know how to think about what you're thinking about. And a story invites you to get inside of it. And then you find that it's gotten inside of you and something new happens that's unexpected. Whereas if you go top to bottom sometimes and try to make your way through it, we're reading so much into that.
That's right.
Versus letting a story just get inside you and go where it will go.
Yeah.
So,
and I think these myths are special in that the characters are sketches, almost stick figures. They're sketches. They're representative. They're mythic.
Yep.
And so they represent different energies at different times. You might find yourself relating to all the different characters in different ways because they're not so specific and chiseled down like a normal novel that we would read now. And so you can kind of step into their shoes and feel what they represent in a very unique way that you can't maybe as easily do with a regular kind of modern narrative.
That's so good.
Yeah. And then there's the mythic language. I think that I, as a writer and as a feeler, I was really blessed by expanding my language. So he was, Dr. Martin Shaw is the one who was hosting the event. And he said that psychological terms, and this is probably why it's attracting the therapist, psychological terms are important and valuable and they can be very helpful, but they can also be limiting. So they can't quite hold necessarily the experience that you're going through. They can kind of name the mental thing, but they can't really hold it in the same way. Yep. And so having this sort of mythic language can help you to expand your sense of what it is you're actually feeling or walking through or facing or overcoming.
Yeah. I've experienced that with just friends, guys that we get to spend time together in other contexts, and we will read like the Legend of Iron John is one. It's this tale that was told by the Brothers Grimm, and it functioned in that way.
Yeah.
It allows us to think about things, each from our different moment or vantage point. But we need more of those.
Yeah.
I'll say more about that later.
Yeah.
Yes. Tease that one.
We'll bring a myth in at some point.
That's right. Well, we will. I think that there might, you said poets are always cooking something in the kitchen or burning something.
Something on the stove.
It's one of my favorite Wendy Kieffer poems. But yeah,
a lot of pans died for that poem.
Well, good job. We may just be cooking up a myth here.
There you go.
So
there you go.
All right. Poetry. Part of the regular cadence for Lab the podcast is, again, to create space for us to let our brains even engage in a way that we don't normally get to engage. So I'm glad you're taking time to listen and join us just to make this a part of your regular cadence. And each time we just kind of pray and think about poetry for this moment. And you send a couple my way and then I read them, and there's inevitably one will jump off the page. And this one is the poem that jumped off the page. So I'm not going to say any more about it. I want you to introduce the poem and the poet. And then if you would, as we do, just kind of take us through it, read through it and let us hear it.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of locate what we're hearing and experiencing.
Okay. So this poem that that jumped out at you and me, what is called The Fury of Sunrises. And it is by Anne Sexton, who was a contemporary of Sylvia Plath and Robert Lowell in mid-century modernist American poetic movement. And she really was one of the pioneers of the confessional style, which we talk about a lot here, that confessional, very personal, very raw. And that was something that was very unexpected and unique. And it's both the source of I feel like her popularity was someone who is so raw and so vulnerable And yet it was also very shocking. So she was a very polarizing figure. It's just shocking to talk about, to write about subjects that were formerly taboo. And, she had this, again, kind of a mythic glamour to her. She was a model for a short period and, drinking and smoking. And she would, she had this very elegant persona, but also very rebellious. And the thing that I wasn't expecting, because I remember learning about her in school, just kind of touching on the different poets of that time and being so enamored with this poem when I first read it and then thinking, oh, Anne Sexton. But the more I got into her life story, the more my heart broke open because I didn't really understand the extent of her mental illness. She really struggled with suicidal ideations for such a long time. Just a bipolar kind of hysteria in and out of mental institutions. And her daughter ended up writing a biography on her. And again, it's just very difficult as the daughter growing up as such an unstable parent. And yet she has this genius. And I think we've talked about Van Gogh before and these kind of, struggle between this creative force, but then having it kind of also be a part of what wrecks you. Or yeah. And a part of her story that I thought was really fascinating too is that she started writing poetry at her therapist's recommendation. She was pretty old when she started. She was 27 and started writing it as a form of therapy. And her therapist was saying, this is really good. You should keep going. And then,
there's the gift.
The gift was born.
Yeah. I said I wasn't going to say anything before you said the poem, but I have to say
it's a long intro.
No, it's good because you bring up Van Gogh, so many other artists who feel, we talk about being porous.
Yeah.
And we feel, right? Even sin in the world, we say it's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so there's this feeling of pain, dislocation, fragmentation, dissonance, and we can't always name it. Right. I think artists often live with the embodied experience of knowing it's not the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. Recently, you just saw probably the picture of, there was this picture that will go down in history of the young child being carried in Gaza, that you can see the back of this child, and it just became this centerpiece picture. And there's been moments in history where people have felt pain before, and artists have helped us feel something. We don't always realize that artists live with those things, whether they're writing about those things, painting about those things, photographing those things. Their experience doesn't stop often. That artist is wrestling for years or months with the things that they are trying to articulate or to convey. And so there's a deep price, Van Gogh too, and all of these artists. And I think it's just something that we have to recognize, that there's a gift in there. And when you feel so deeply, there's a burden that comes from that.
Yeah.
too.
And then you think about, in her case, just being famous, having to juggle that, that amount of attention and having that persona, and some of the choices that she made in that role. I think that becomes a lot to carry, even for the mentally fit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all of us.
Yeah. It's a heavy burden to carry. And anyway, this is from a series of Furies. There were 15 poems, The Fury of Sundays, The Fury of Rainstorms, The Fury. Even the title is intense. Someone described her as having no skin, about having all of her nerve endings exposed. Now, what would that be like, to experience life that way in such a visceral and intense way? So when I first read this poem, we'll read it, The Fury of Sunrises. Again, there is so much about it that is hopeful, that is light and bright, and something opening, and that dawn moment that is really felt viscerally. And then there's commingled in that some of the despair and some of the mundane and the sublime all mixing together. So I think that's what makes this poem special. So I'll just read it. The Fury of Sunrises. Darkness, as black as your eyelid, poke tricks of stars, the yellow mouth, the smell of a stranger, dawn coming up, dark blue, no stars, the smell of a lover, warmer now, as authentic as soap, wave after wave of lightness. And the birds in their chains going mad with throat noises, the birds in their tracks yelling into their cheeks like clowns. Lighter, lighter, the stars gone, the trees appearing in their green hoods, the house appearing across the way, the road in its sad macadam, the rock walls losing their cotton. Lighter, lighter, letting the dog out and seeing fog lift by her legs, a gauze dance, lighter, lighter, yellow, blue at the tops of trees, more God everywhere. Lighter, lighter, more world everywhere, sheets bent back for people, the strange heads of love and breakfast, that sacrament, lighter, yellower, like the yolk of eggs, the flies gathering at the window pane, the dog inside whining for food, and the day commencing, not to die, as in the last day breaking, a final day digesting itself, lighter, lighter, the endless colors, the same old trees stepping toward me, the rock unpacking its crevices, breakfast like a dream, and the whole day to live through, steadfast, deep, interior. After the death, after the black of black, this lightness, not to die, that God begot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good and intense.
Intense.
The intensity of that,
I know.
right?
I know.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to the even the last word is just like charged.
I know. The whole poem all the way through. Yeah, and I love how she, again, we talked about this on the last or 2 podcasts ago, this liminal time where you have this transition moment. The sunrise would be a transition moment.
Yeah.
So it's going from night to day. And there's an attention in the small hours that is harder to maintain once the house wakes up and the day gets going. And so it has this sublime beginning. And she's saying that it starts as darkness. It's distant, it's mysterious, it has a smell of a stranger. It's far away. Mm-hmm. It's not familiar. But then as the dawn comes up, what happens? It's the smell of a lover, and it's warm and it's authentic. And it's coming in these waves. And then suddenly she switches after we have darkness and the stranger, and now it's dawn coming up, and now it's close and authentic. The birds in their chains going mad with throat noises. This is where the poet could just say the birds were singing. No. Nope. They were in their chains going mad with throat noises. And you can kind of feel that, right? Hello, everyone. My name is Wendy Kieffer, and I am honored and overjoyed to share with you my debut poetry collection, Alchemy of Praise. I chose the word alchemy for the title because it represents transformation, and especially the kind that is magnificent or mysterious and even inexplicable. Also, alchemy represents the kind of change that is possible through poetry, taking beauty from ashes and the way it lives inside of us, transforming the way we see or perceive our world. And you'll find in this collection a variety of themes, poems on wonder and stillness, poems that exalt God and lift our eyes up, and also poems that explore the interior spaces of the soul. All of these I offer to you with love and deep gratitude. You can find your copy on Amazon. And here's to allowing poetry to do as Jana Joya said, to awaken, amplify, and refine our sense of being alive. Thanks again. The birds in their tracks, yelling into their cheeks like clowns. So now we have this symphonic kind of noisy cacophony of sounds. And now the trees are appearing, and the house, and the road. And the road in its sad macadam is just its sad asphalt. Like it must be deteriorating. The rock walls losing their cotton are just walls that are deteriorating. So again, we have these deteriorating, and even trees appearing in their green hoods is a little ominous. And then the roads are deteriorating and the rock walls are deteriorating. And yet, lighter, lighter. There's that refrain, lighter, lighter. Letting the dog out and then seeing the fog lift by her legs. A gauze dance, lighter, lighter. So we have these images just starting to come into play. The birds, I'm hearing the birds in their throat noises. I'm seeing the fog dance around the dog's legs. And now I'm seeing the yellow and blue on the tops of the trees, which is a very creative color. Yellow, blue, and red are like the colors that are representing creativity. And you can, and I think of yellow and blue, I think of Van Gogh. Everything, just what he did with yellow and blue. And then she says, more God everywhere. And I thought that was just such a powerful use of that, of describing, I don't have the words for this. This is too grand and too beautiful. And I'm just going to, the only thing I can say is just God. This is just God. And, you know, she would probably not call herself a person of traditional faith. She had issues with the established religion, but she has so much God searching in her poems. And so more God everywhere. Again, the refrain, lighter, lighter, more world everywhere. And then she has this strange line, sheets bent back for people, the strange heads of love and breakfast. So we have this intimate moment and this almost mysterious or unexpected look at something that is familiar, the strange heads of love. Oh, and there's breakfast. Now we have the mundane. So the sublime and the mundane are kind of woven together throughout this poem. And she calls it a sacrament. A sacrament. Lighter, yellower, like the yolk of eggs. So now she's, the sunrise is no longer a stranger or a mouth or a lover or this or that. Now it's yolk. Now it's that egg yolk color, egg yolk image. We're now moving into the table, to the routine of the day. Because the flies are gathering at the window pane now, and the dog is whining for food. So here we are now in the thick of the day. And I think we did a poem by, who was it? The Scottish poet we did. I'm drawing a blank. But his whole poem took place in those small hours, right before the day begins. And I feel like there is this mystery and this magic and this pregnancy. And then suddenly, okay, the dog is whining, the flies are gathering, and the day is commencing. And again, we did a poem with about a china bowl, a blue china bowl and a grapefruit, again, coming down in the morning. So there is a definite time of day and a pregnancy of possibility that I think poets are drawn to in these liminal spaces. But after the day starts commencing, instead of saying lighter, lighter, the refrain switches. And the day commencing, and she says, not to die, not to die, not to die. So that dawn gives you a hope not to die. The day itself is not dying. It will go on. It comes on. The sun resurrects every morning. And then you also wonder if this is a refrain that she is wrestling with her depression. Not to die, as in the last day breaking, a final day digesting itself. So this last day breaking, not to die, as in the last day breaking, a final day digesting itself. That is quite a line. Is she talking about the last day of all days, the very last moment the earth spins? Is she talking about her last day, or is she talking about yesterday? Leaves it a little open. And then she says, goes back to lighter, lighter. So the sun is still coming up. Everything is becoming lighter. And she sees the endless colors, the same old trees stepping towards me. Again, I still picture them hooded. Now they're advancing. The rock unpacking its crevices. So is it breaking down? Is it showing its secret fissures? Is it exposing something inside of it self that is a secret crack.
Mm.
And then she says, breakfast like a dream, and the whole day to live through. Steadfast, deep, interior. We talk about interiority a lot on this podcast, and about that depth of soul and that interior life. And I think that is, again, why poetry is so important, is to carve out that space inside.
Mm.
So she's got this steadfast, deep interior. And then the last, I circled this whole last section. After the death, after the black of black. So she's talking about, of course, after the night, because she started the poem with darkness as black as your eyelid, after the death, after the black of black. But she's also, of course, talking about death. This lightness, this sunrise. Again, not to die, that God begot. She is again drawing her eyes up and saying, after all of the death, whatever death is coming, the many deaths that we experience throughout our lives, the death even in a metaphorical sense of nighttime, that this lightness that God begot is still here, beckoning not to die, not to die.
I love this poem. I love it so much. Like it was so charged when you sent it my way, and I found myself just sitting there, and it did disturb me.
Yeah.
When I read it, I was like moved but disturbed, and I was sat there for a second. I was like, what am I so provoked by? And I was just provoked by like almost gratitude, thinking about her and her story, and going, here's this person who is feeling what she's feeling, and she's not to die, lighter.
Yeah.
Like I always say, that light says to the darkness, I beg to differ. Like there is a last day. There is this, that God begot.
Yeah.
That is a charged 3 words right there.
Absolutely.
To say that God begot, she's deliberately, I think, going to scripture and the begotten of God.
Yeah.
Like, it's a God-caused thing,
Yeah.
right? And it's a resistance against that, like, slide toward death and disenchantment and dark, right? Like, to even wake up like that, and the way she takes you from complete darkness, and it's just like, now the colors are emerging, and the hooded trees are appearing, and the whole day is coming, like you described, the symphonic nature of reality. That's every single day. That's actually what's real.
Yeah.
But in the day commencing, we don't feel that. Like we don't see any of that. And so I see her as this poet going, look at what this is, right? Like this is what's actually happening. And yet everybody's asleep and we're missing it. And this whole poem is a waking poem. So I think it's personal, it's charged. And here we are at the threshold of the dawn of a new age, right? In even the edge of the late modern period. We're on this chasm, right? Where it's like, there is something coming, and so I love it.
It's great.
Love it.
Yeah. And again, I think you're going to get in this confessional style, this rawness. I think that's why people were so attracted to her. And maybe someone who's suffering so much from despair has a particular kind of sense and vulnerability that, is they're not shielded. They're not stilted. They're not coming at it from some high tower. They are in the actual feelings of the despair and fighting their way out. And the poem is this raw expression of that. And so it's charged because there's a real fight happening, a wrestling. There's a wrestling happening. And then we get to enter into that and feel that tension and realize that whether we're aware of it or not, that wrestling is really inside of us each day. And it almost, like you said, helps us to come alive to this mystery and magnitude of a day beginning each and every day that we miss.
Isn't that right? Like the coming alive to this, like it helps us come back to something essential that I think is on layers, right? Like
Yeah.
is this the last day? Like what is coming to not die, right? Lighter, lighter is
Yeah.
the trajectory. Like the course of human history has a redemptive arc, like
That's
God
right.
will have the last word. So on a huge scale,
Yep.
it's coming awake to that theme.
Yep.
Beneath that, it's coming awake to the theme of just like what we're dancing, tingling, a festival, not a cold machine.
Yeah.
What is this aliveness, right? That
Right.
presents itself every single day that we're like maybe missing and not awake to. And then there's even like this other layer I see of just like, how do I, like, when's the last time that I could say that I encountered the dawn as authentic as soap? Right. And I loved that she said that, authentic as soap. You've probably felt, I just did in Oregon. I was out in Oregon for a bit this summer.
Yeah.
And the mornings there have a freshness and there's an authentic as soapness to it. And I was like, thank you for just reminding me that that's actually what morning is like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times do we wake up and we're just like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
Right. Like, here we go again.
Yeah.
Get out of bed. And yet morning is meeting authentic as soap, right? With a freshness. That day has actually never been. It's the freshest moment in all of human history. That's the freshest moment.
It's great.
What?
That's a great way of looking
What?
at it. Yeah. No, and the idea that you can, a part of yourself can die to beauty. It can die slowly. It just starts to atrophy to beauty. And you might find that you're not quite fully alive. And that she's saying not to die, and noticing all of these things and that is helping her, I think, choose that lighter. I want more God everywhere. There's this sort of tingling aliveness in this raw display. And there is something I think about, that kind of, when you're on vacation, you notice the sunrise.
Sure.
And it's so hard once the day gets going and you're back in your normal routine to hang on to that beauty. So I find that what happens to me when I travel is so intense and beautiful, and it really stays with me for a while. But the thing that I can do to kind of blow on those embers is to keep reading.
Yeah.
To keep reading and reciting and using this as a way to keep that alive.
Yeah. Isn't that even just scripture? Like, how many times remember that more God everywhere, right? Like the heavens declare the glory of God. Like if we could live with that sense, and I love how you said it's almost musical. And at this point we're like making a turn in the poem that starts here and it can't go anywhere else. It has to, it goes and then it goes up ultimately and go more God everywhere.
Yeah.
It can only be that. Right. Something like this could only be that. Stars fading, sun appearing, trees appearing and moving. Like, what is this? More God everywhere. And then I love what she said. And this is Lewis, right? Saying that he believes in God, not because he sees the sun, but because he sees everything else, right? So more God everywhere. And then where does she go? She says more world everywhere. And that's how she goes back into her ordinary. And we talk about that all the time. Vision up allows you to come back, vision in, transformed. And then you pick up the blue china bowl or the sacrament of breakfast and your egg yolk has become a sacrament.
That's
because more God everywhere.
Yep.
And then now I see you go, oh, wow. Even this is my manna for today.
Right.
Different.
Yeah. And she has a wildness.
Yeah.
There's wildness in this poem. There's wildness in all of her poems. And I think wildness is very attractive.
Yeah.
And it's a part of who we are. And that's something that I studied a lot over the summer with Dr. Shaw, is like the idea, and it's in his book, that wildness is different from feral. Like wild, you still have your limits, but there is this sort of need to kind of come out of your, whatever your domestic, more mundane living and thinking is, to disconnect from that, to sever yourself into like a threshold experience where you really wrestle with something and you find that wild part of yourself that is very holy and very natural. And then you can go back into your mundane kind of, regular existence, but you're more whole.
Yes.
You're more whole.
Yeah.
And so there's a wildness to this poem.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. I just studied a lot of that. A lot of the myths are about that. Like the old Celtic myths are about selkies singing back. They want their skin back. They lost that wildness. They've been domesticated and they want their skin back and they have to sing it. I mean, there's all of these tension between feeling the freedom of being this playful, this free, with this in tuned and excited about something like a sunset. And feeding the dog for breakfast, feeding the kids, getting out the door. And we need both.
Yeah.
We really need both.
Yeah. And almost this kind of functions like a cold plunge, awaking us, right? Like just, again, snapping us out of the fog of just modernity and our moments and whatever, to wake us back up. And then you get to re-enter those other things with with an aliveness.
That's right.
And that's the point, is that you don't stay only in this moment, but the fury of a sunrise awakens you to what is true and what is real.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
No, it's so good. Thank you for finding your way to this. And I just am grateful for the poet and the poem, and grateful for you curating these kind of things. Because I have a sense, and I want to invite you to read this again, but I have a sense a lot of us need the fury of sunrises right now. And maybe you do, who you're listening, right? Like prayer has fallen asleep. You don't wake up saying, God, God, everywhere, more God everywhere. It doesn't feel like that anymore. Breakfast doesn't feel like a sacrament. The day's commenced and it feels like it doesn't ever stop commencing, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so real, and there's so much cross pressure. And so I think this can be and do what art does, right? We say it all the time. Buechner's saying, pay attention to this thing. There's something there, and you're not wrong. There is a last day that God begot, right? Good.
So
Would you read it again and just let it? And if you're listening, here's what I want to invite you to do. We talk about this all the time, that poetry is to be read, to be experienced through all of our senses in this way. So just listen and take a deep breath, breathe in whatever air that you're breathing in, and feel whatever you're feeling, just that sense of aliveness, and let these words just come alive and be an invitation, the fury of sunrises.
That's great. Darkness, as black as your eyelid, poke tricks of stars, the yellow mouth, the smell of a stranger, dawn coming up, dark blue, no stars, the smell of a lover, warmer now, as authentic as soap, wave after wave of lightness, and the birds in their chains going mad with throat noises, the birds in their tracks yelling into their cheeks like clowns, lighter, lighter, the stars gone, the trees appearing in their green hoods, the house appearing across the way, the road in its sad macadam, the rock walls losing their cotton, lighter, lighter, letting the dog out and seeing fog lift by her legs, a gauze dance, lighter, lighter, yellow, blue at the tops of trees, more God everywhere, lighter, lighter, more world everywhere, sheets bent back for people, the strange heads of love, and breakfast, that sacrament, lighter, yellower, like the yolk of eggs, the flies gathering at the window pane, the dog inside whining for food, and the day commencing, not to die, as in the last day breaking, a final day digesting itself, lighter, lighter, the endless colors, the same old trees stepping toward me, the rock unpacking its crevices, breakfast like a dream, and the whole day to live through, steadfast, deep, interior. After the death, after the black of black, this lightness, not to die, that God begot.